Hi, everybody, and welcome to my short tutorial on creating beautiful graphics. I'm going to go over some design essentials to help you get started when designing your posts on Spark Post, or even if you're using visuals in a slide deck or PowerPoint. These are some design essentials that you should be considering when making your design and aesthetic choices. So, here's some ideas that we might want to consider when we're looking for effective design examples. The first thing that we might want to consider is the idea of having or using visuals. So, John Medina, who is the author of the book Brain Rules, did a study, and what he found was that when you include visuals in any of your graphics, anything that you're trying to also learn or something that you're trying to teach, if you include a visual and inside of that, what they found was that participants who saw the word versus just read the word or saw the visual of the word were 65% more likely after 72 hours to remember what they had seen versus what they had heard or what they had read. So there's actually a lot of brain research to go with the idea that it's really powerful to include visuals and to include visuals when you're trying to get your message across. So an example of that is when I always say, like, imagine Steve Jobs had introduced the MacBook Air, and this was his slide with his bullet points and burgundy backgrounds. But the way that Steve Jobs actually introduced the MacBook Air, well, actually, he had the MacBook Air in a envelope on a chair that he pulled out, and then had this in the background, and you could actually hear audible gasps in the audience because people were just so amazed by the fact that it could fit in an envelope. At the time, that was really groundbreaking. But the point is, he was really understood the need to have visual components to his presentations. And this also kind of comes back to the idea that, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And so when we also include warm words and graphics, and we are considerate of the way that we, lift others up in our visuals, and the way that we're able to lift and convey intention and purpose through our visuals, it's also very memorable. So people will remember the way that they felt and the way that they what they've seen of what you share. The next thing is the use of white space. And this is really powerful in design. So this is an example from Gar Reynolds. And this visual is really noisy. It has a lot of graphics, and it's very hard to understand what's going on. So you can't really get the main points of what they're trying to actually say through this visual. But then if you eliminate all the noise and you just focus on the main point and use the white space to help kind of amplify what you're trying to actually say, it makes a huge difference in what you're going to get out of what you've just seen. So I'm a huge believer that, less is more, right? And you don't have to have every inch of every single visual that you create covered with some kind of word or graph or icon or image. The other one is the use of visual breathing room. And this is a really great example of that, where it seems like, it's not horrible, but it's also so much going on. There's so many images and so many quotes that when you simplify that, your message comes out so much stronger. So again, I always say less is more. Use, the spacing accurately, have visual breathing room, or you can use white space. And then the final tip that I love to give is the idea of using grid to help kind of portray your message more effectively. And in post, in Spark Post, you can use the different collages that are available. And so you can do that and kind of create these really interesting visuals in a more compelling way when you're able to add a little bit of math in the grid to what you're trying to show. And so this is the same visual using the grid that really does look so beautiful. And this already was fine on its own, but then add to that the different the grid, and you're able to really start making your message pop even more. And it's just something so calming to your eye. It is really just so calming to the eye when it is done through a grid. Finally, a few things to consider. Just keep it simple. I don't want to say stupid, but keep it simple, silly. Avoid fancy fonts. You really want to try to keep the fonts um simplified. Try to avoid too many fancy fonts. If you're going to use one fancy font, then don't use all of them as fancy. Just have the one major one, and then the rest are more simple. And of course, you want to avoid as much as possible these kind of word art. Just no. And definitely try to keep the template simple that you design with. This just does not do anything for your message. Avoid the bullet points as well. All right, so let's get you to create something beautiful. Looking forward to see what you design.